All right. Let's bring down the music as we all love here on the show. This has been Cast Cycling Show. Brian Kellison, Brian White, Lisa Vries, Casey Shum, who's finishing up a race. He's going to be in here a little bit. Special guest, James Barnes, Barney, known to one and all, is joining us from New Zealand. I don't know what's Christchurch or something like that. I don't know.
Queenstown, further south.
Okay, further south. Okay. Brian's actually from the beach, and so I want to know when his One Crazy Summer is still going on. It's in October.
That's it.
All right, you got to tell us. You were just telling us about this video. Tell us about this video.
Okay. So
for the the non-video audience, there's a beach shot from the sand to the water, playing behind Brian, and he's got a fantastic story before we bring James in officially.
Yeah. So I just wanted basically a video of the beach rolling, or the waves rolling on the beach. So of course it's, I guess, public, people were there. Well, someone that really enjoys fudge rounds is wearing a 2-piece bikini that I had to edit out because she's like right in front of the camera flaunting her stuff out.
Fudge rounds.
Oh yeah.
What are fudge rounds?
Fudge rounds? You don't know what fudge rounds are?
I've never heard that term.
Oh, dude.
All right, hold on a second. James, have you heard that before?
I'm guessing I know. I know what it is, but I'm not gonna. No, like, have you heard it? I've never heard fudge rounds, but I'm like, what I've seen in that cut, and then what he's now said. Now I put the two together. We can all
guess, but I've never heard that before, and he's astonished that we haven't heard it. So
it's like a little Debbie's snack cake that it's I don't know, about this big around, and it's just like a chocolate deliciousness of 300 calories of terrible food for you.
All right,
but anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of skin, a lot of fluff that I had to edit out because it's kind of funny because the husband, you could looks down at the camera and is like, oh, there it is. And then it's like they did it on purpose. I got a good laugh, but I had to edit it out for you guys.
Okay, well, we have it. So this is gonna be on like full gas, or is it gonna be on Ruby? No, this is a stationary shot, right? Because
yeah, I got the GoPro stuck in the sand and we're watching the beautiful Bahama.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the scene from One Crazy Summer. If anyone's seen One Crazy Summer, where they bury the friend who's actually a Murray.
Yeah.
They bury the friend in the sand, and then the guy comes with chili. So wonderful start of the show. We're waiting for Casey. He's coming. He's doing FRR, the Flamme Rouge Racing, like a Zwift stage report. He's in. We stalled enough.
Even got changed.
He looks good. He cleaned the flute. The flute is ready to go for flute practice.
The flute may go. I don't know.
Okay. All right. We can officially start the show. We want to bring in James Barnes, and the main thing that we want to bring up is he's one of the best athletes in this sport. Now, outside, I don't know him that well. Maybe you are a road racer, or maybe do mountain bike. I don't know what you do. But you are a star in e-racing, e-cycling, virtual cycling, whatever we call it. So we want to know the origin story. So can you give us a little bit of the origin story of how you got into this sport?
Yeah. So basically, I started riding at it's 9 years old. My dad, there's a new local back when I was living in Johannesburg. There was a big local cycle race called the 94.7 Cycle Challenge, and the day before, my dad had signed up for it on his mountain bike with slicks. He'd been training for it. And then the day before, there was a kids race. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Like around the good old Kyalami, those who do motor racing, no motor racing, Kyalami racetrack. Basically, you'd finish on the Kyalami racetrack, and the kids race, you would race around Kyalami racetrack. And that was the day before. And my dad's all registration, we go and do it. And I race it, and I win the kids race. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, Dad, next year I want to do the full road race on you. And I'm on his old steel down tube shifter road bike that with like the original like oval like chain rings and like that. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. And my dad's like, okay, cool. Like you can do it. And I can dig up a photo of it somewhere, and I've got it somewhere. Yeah. And there's a photo of me 10 years old. I did a 4-hour, 45, 95 kilometer race on this bike that's way too big for me, huge and everything. And then
that's fast.
And then he says to me, he's like, and it was it's a 1,400 meters of climbing over 95K, so nice big, some decent hills and rollers and stuff. And then Then he says to me, he's like, "Are you going to take this seriously?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm gonna like." I got really into it, and I was started, and then I started joining, like they had what they called the B team morning clubs, and they would meet on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, at a circle, 4:45 in the morning, and then do a little local 30K loop, and it was great. And they all mates and everything. And then he bought me my first road bike, a Trek 1200 with the blue one with the carbon fiber fork, and Shimano 105 with the cable still the external that loop down the middle. And then did that 94.7 with him the next year. Yeah, and then I took an hour or 45 minutes out of my time.
Wow.
And did that, and then basically did that cycle race every year. I'd made a thing of it that I did every single year until basically the year I moved to New Zealand. So I've done, I think it was like 14 of them or something consecutively all the way through, and then it basically I built my way up for it. And we have, because again there was really big events with tens of thousands of people that you get seedings, so you'd progressively move up the seedings, and I got all the way up to, I think I got up to B batch, which is basically the as far as you can go without getting a race license. And then you start getting, then you start doing your age groupers, your vets, your elites and juniors and stuff. And then so I got to that point. Then with school and university, that kind of took a bit of a backseat. So I wasn't race training as seriously or riding as seriously. I was getting too much into my gaming and really enjoying university and that gaming and stuff. And then just went to school, and then came back. I went to the UK, spent 6 months in the UK after 21, and then just kind of got back into, and then said to myself, I'm going to take the cycling a bit more seriously, and I want to race 94.7, that cycle challenge, in the elite bunch. And from 2012, I'm going to say, I started racing elite level, and trying to do at the front there. And then 19, I don't know, somewhere back then. And that's basically it. So then I raced at the top level on the road. There, I got some top 10s, and then my best result in theory was a third at a local race, East Rand Classic. Got third place there, in the elite field there, and was racing on a team, like a little local team there, and we would go do some of the tours and stuff there as well, which was really cool. At that time as well, I started to get involved with track cycling. Was then doing track cycling at a provincial level, like state level for the Americans. So then doing that and going into provincial races there, basically worked my way up to, I was the reserve of the reserve for the Commonwealth team in 2000, the Gold Coast Commonwealth team for the pursuit team. So I got to that level there. I've raced 2 Absa Cape Epics mountain bike stage races with a friend who was really into his mountain biking. And so then while all this time, from the age of 16, to fund this habit, I started working in a bike shop, just as a little, on a Friday afternoon after school, to help in the afternoons, and a Saturday to help them with the rush, just to pay my way with the cycling and buy the upgrades. And worked a bit more time then through university. As my time in university dwindled down, I ramped it up there and then helped them. They then separated their workshop, so the workshop was remote. I then built a system with them, basically with Google Sheets, for inventory management, bike management, and scheduling and booking and moving, so people knew where stuff was. And then I managed their workshop off-site there for them, and then started working full-time at a bike shop because I dropped out of university, and then moved to a competitor store, ran their workshop, moved into managing their whole store for them before moving into IT. And then Zwift came along about that time, because that was 10 years ago when the whole beta came on and the good old blue men. And my number is 18,300, I think. So I was like, still remember that good old Fords with all the blue men. I had to get a trainer that I could get, I had a little tax wasn't a Flow, it was the Tax Vortex trainer. So I was going around on that, wheel on trainer, get on that there, started that. And then, because I've always been involved in loving gaming and computers, then Zwift for me was like a natural progression, because I could, it was gaming, but with a bicycle. So basically smushed together 2 of my loves and real passions together in one. And then you fast forward 4 years later, and here I am, 5-6 years later, here I am.
So when you heard from your dad about when you were like 9 years old and he said, you want to take this seriously, did that happen when you got into after all of the university gaming work, all that other stuff, and then Zwift / virtual cycling, did that come back to mind where you're like, hey, I want to take this seriously instead of just sort of like use it for training or whatever?
I was already at that point. I already was starting to take it seriously because I saw that there was racing, and I was trying to like get involved with the racing and trying to find out information. This was before they had events on Zwift, and that you would all meet at the we would all meet at the downtown banner, and 3, 2, 1, go, and that sort of thing, and that's and I was ready at that time. I was racing at that top level on the road, in the South African elites like scene, and racing at that level there with them. And so I was really intrigued and trying to figure it out and learn about the online racing on Zwift and trying to like suss my way into it. And again, as I didn't really know anybody, then to try find a team and get involved in a team was really hard. And then it then took a bit of a back seat because that was also that first later on, then that first year where I really was starting to take it seriously when Zwift started to roll out, was then they had those first national championships. If you remember those, when I think Holden took the first one for America, and then a guy called Jeffrey Creel took the South African one. I was annulled because I was on the wheel-on trainer, because as we all realized, and I didn't, at that time didn't realize that it was and that whole thing. So I was annulled from that, and learned quite a bit from that, then moved to Hammer H1. And so I kind of that's when I realized, like, that nationals, I was like, I can take this seriously. I can take it to the next level.
Right. We have a drinking game. Oh, there goes somebody.
Oh, there you go. There's your muffin top.
Hey, perfect timing for the audio only audience. You have to take 2 sips of whatever you're drinking, hydration or whatever, because we said annulled twice. There's the third one.
Annulled.
And
actually,
then,
still see those national jerseys roaming around Zwift. They were the full black kit with the flag on the back. I think I came 86th, the very first Zwift nationals.
So Barney, what was your first official like Zwift esports kind of event that you got into that was like the verified kind of like those nationals?
That's Zwift, that's South African nationals.
Yeah.
That was it. And then I got annulled out of it, and I think I might have taken the win from it, and I got annulled out of it because I didn't have because I had a wheel-on trainer. But then I was still on I was using Garmin's like the second generation with the pods with their power vector pedals. And they wouldn't take those. They wouldn't take those efforts, and I was using those on the track, and they wouldn't take those. And so then I got annulled from it. So I was like, I was like really disappointed, because I was like, I really was starting to take it seriously and trying to. But that was again before in South Africa, trainers were really expensive, and getting a wheel-on trainer was really, really hard, and really expensive. So and then luckily found somebody that was then selling an H1 trainer and was able to get hold of one of those, which was then more reputable in the community, and then moved to New Zealand in 2018. Yeah, 2018. I think it was. I can't remember now, ages ago. And then bought a Dorado trainer, a Dorado X, and like that's when I then started taking it seriously, because I was then doing a lot of my training indoors, and then that's when the proper events, and Casey with this, I think the Super Series was also kicking off about then, and I was really scratching to try get involved in a team and trying to find a team, and that's when I joined the Innovation and kind of then jumped there, and then that Movistar what was it, when they were trying to set up that E team, and then you had all those races and that there. Yeah, I was bubble boy. I was 31 out of 30 to the finals. Like I just missed it.
Yeah.
I was going so deep going up radio tower. I was basically getting tunnel that, you get that like tunnel, super tunnel vision. It's that kind of, I really wanted it that badly. And then luckily got picked up by, and then was talking at that time to Adam Zimmerman with the Ensure team, and that's when they like did that match together literally at that time and that point then with Next, and and that where they put it all put those teams together and mush them all together.
Right. Going back to when you had the wheel-on trainer.
Yeah.
Did you know that the wheel-on trainer was sort of questionable, or you just like the communication was because it's so new of a sport. The communication of that, you were like, hey, I'm just who I am.
Yeah, and again, at that time, I was already like, okay, I have some like in-person results, and I
Yeah.
race at a level here. There was no trainer requirements on the event, so they had no like you are only allowed this, and like nowadays you have the 1% rules, and you have all those things within the event. Within the event, the event rules, and there was none of that for those first
Right.
for those first
But they
nationals.
had-
I think it was all you needed was a UC, not a UCI license, but a race license for your country.
Oh, that was it. Like
That was
no other performance verification or anything like that. It was sort of like
no, like I think it was obviously you needed heart rate and everything.
Yeah, it was with the count and a race license.
Heart rate, yeah.
And then okay.
Yeah, I think those were like, if I remember right back then, it was like one sentence written in the rules that post race top riders will be verified or something like that. But there was no like guidelines to it at all. So it was just, I mean, a lot of people fell into that same you didn't know what was enough until after the fact, and you went through it, and then guys were gutted by it, really, and weren't doing anything intentional.
But it drove you to want to be better.
Oh yeah,
or get the proper equipment to then go, hey, this is something I want to do. This is
then I chased down the trainer, and basically within the month got hold of the H1 trainer, which then at that time was horrific because it would overheat. So I got a dedicated fan for it. So then when I come into the sprint, it wouldn't just suddenly lose resistance. And I took it back to Cyclops, and I was like, what's going on here? They're like, oh, it's everything's fine. I'm like, no, something's not right with this unit. And then I learned, and then went digging on the internet, and was like, they're like, no, the units overheat, and you need to basically put a fan on to stop it. And I was like, okay, well then, and as soon as I did that fixed the problem.
Yeah.
They're like, is your FTP over 300? I don't think you should have this trainer.
Yeah, I loved it though. It was great. It was a great trainer. But yeah, that was that whole rabbit hole. That's where the whole rabbit hole started, and trying to verify yourself and trying to show, well, these are my times that I was using for qualifying for like the IPs and the so they could work it out and all that stuff. Because again, I didn't have. I think that I had the Vector pedals, and I had a little one of those old school power tap hubs that I've oddly still got, like that old silver power tap hub. I've got one of those still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I started.
I think we're still. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Oh no, I was just saying I started with one of the silver power tap hubs. Yeah.
I'm just saying that we're still in the rabbit hole. Like we're like close to seeing the light, but it's like we're still in the rabbit hole because there's so many trainers on the market, so many things in the market, so many more platforms now too.
Yeah.
And sort of like, hopefully there will be alignment soon. That's the ultimate goal, to make it easier on an athlete. And then I had that written down as one of my things as an athlete, like, because I've done masters performance verification and other things like that. The stuff that you guys go through, the hoops you jump through, it mentally is straining, but also to stay on your fitness for that long. How tough is it for you from an athlete's perspective, from like the elite?
Man, I miss those days of those weekly WTRL Premier Division races. Like, oddly, like I missed it. Like those weekly races where we were the day before the community. For me, that was like the height of like when the esports racing was, because yes, it was really rough because you're trying to, and I learned from the mistake. You're worrying about your weight for a week. Like, you're worrying about it all the time, week on, week off. And then I learned, and I realized it's like, actually there's a bit more to life than weight, and being 2 kilos heavier was a bit more. And that's the one thing that I think, I still it's something within our community that I really would love to somehow address, or somehow like, it's such a shame that it is such a prevalent issue, because the stuff I saw in Singapore and the stuff I've heard that people do is just, I'm like, I understand, but like, shit, like, if you're going through this, no wonder the guys are burning out after 4 weeks of weekly racing, because you're stressing so much about your weight. You're going through this, you're cutting this, you're doing, it takes its toll. But like, I've luckily learned to just I've found my happy medium, and I've found to like how to balance it. I could probably be closer to 71 kilos maybe.
Yeah.
I could be 70 kilos if I really tried hard, but shit, then I've got to be so careful about what I eat and everything. But then, I'm happy at being anywhere between 72 and a half, 73 to 75 kilos, 77 on a fat day, you know, because shit, food is, there's a bit more to life than like not eating, and I enjoy my food way too much, and I love my cupcake, you know, is that,
I think we've all dealt with that with here, you know, and people that are listening, you know, it's like,
and it's something I think everybody needs to just talk about. And I think it's one of those things as well, is that you push the limits too far for one race, and you hopefully then learn from that mistake, and but you know, because you burn. And again, that was the thing, like those weekly races, it definitely took its toll on it, like because you're stressing about it. But then I really enjoy it, because I'm the stereotypical overanalyze every race to the nth degree and all the possible outcomes and what could happen. And then again, but that was also really good, is what was a really great thing about our team is how supportive all the guys were within the team.
Right.
Everybody was just super supportive of each other. Everybody was like chipping in on ideas and talking, and just like, you know, so there wasn't really pressure from the team to perform, you know, to push the limits and push this, but it was, as long as you're enjoying it and you're happy, great. But then if you needed time off, or you needed to take a week off, they were fine with it.
Oh, that's good. I'm sure there's teams that are
make a really good point
on
about the whole being on, you know, not just for weight, but I think that's the whole indoor cycling. You know, there used to be an off season. Like if you rode outdoors, there was an off season. It got rainy. Maybe you did cyclocross, but you probably had 2-3 months sort of off the bike where you took it easy or just went on easy rides. Like with indoor, you can ride 5 races a week all year long. You can be on all the time. And you know, I think that puts a lot of stress on people, especially if you're racing at, you know, sort of a very top level. I mean, I see it with guys, you know, not racing at top level who are racing 4 or 5 times a week. And I'm like, dudes, slow down.
Right. But there's also the casual, because we bring this up a lot on the show, the casual versus competitive. And so like you can race 5 days a week, you can race 2 times a day all the time. But if it's just casual, like you don't have to change your weight, you don't have to do a performance verification, you're on a wheel-on trainer, you're on a whatever, like a direct drive trainer or whatever, you're having fun, you're doing the thing that you want to do. The having to be on all the time, it was, for me personally, it was mentally taxing. Like I got so lean, I was worrying about my weight, I was like making sure I was dual recording, I was like, I had to do my weight verification video, all these certain things. And you're like, and you got to perform, and you have to be there and you have teammates. Luckily, you're like James was just saying, is he had a team that was like, hey, just if you're having fun, do it. That was always the thing with our team was, hey, we're doing fun, we had a good time together. There's also like, you're putting the onus on yourself to go, hey, I want to perform for the team. So you're putting added pressure. All the other things that to prove that who you are, and then the instant stigma that, oh yeah, you're fake. You know, it's like, that's another problem in the community that I would love for it to be eliminated.
Yeah.
But it's like coming back to that fake thing is like, I've had my fair share of that whole thing. And again, and I go like, wait, like what do you guys like, what, like, and I always kind of like look at it and I'm like, why? Like, what is it about me that you think there's dodginess, or what is it? Like, I am probably, you know, every race that I generally do, I was back in those days, you know, I'm a bit sloppier now, but I was dual recording every race. I'm streaming every twitching, all my information's on Strava for anybody anywhere. And I'm sitting there going like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Like, what have I missed? Like, what, like, come on, like, but then when you ask them and interrogate them, like, and I'd go back to them, they wouldn't say anything. And I'm like, okay, like, cool, like, so please just, and then suddenly then they'll just stop and disappear. And you're like kind of going, you know, it's that whole thing of some people, you see it when they, you know, like what's happening. And sometimes you see it with people when they generally is that they, you know, that whole where there's smoke, there's fire. When somebody gets accused and they're suddenly like defensive and like, oh no, this and this and this, and trying to like, and you're like kind of going, well, but if you're innocent, why are you being so deflective? Why are you trying to coming up with these excuses? Why don't you just provide the information and be open and willing to it? Like, it's that whole just, it's just weird.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. There's the sort of like the instant stigma of, oh, you're not real, or you can't do this.
Yeah.
And then when you're like, hey, I disclose everything, or I try to disclose everything as possible.
Yeah.
And I dual record and all this, and stuff's out there. There's a lot of people that don't want to share that. They don't want to do that. And we just have to not have the immediate cheating because cheating is so prevalent in the sport. That's the thing. Is
the
like
pitchchforks and flame torches and
Yeah,
trying to burn
exactly.
everything down. And that whole thing is, again, like that whole Zada thing, which I was having as well, is like that whole, like, as much as I really like, I enjoy the conversations I now have with Bjorn, but like that whole, you're guilty, but like aggressively guilty until you prove yourself that you're absolutely innocent until the thing. And I was like, I was like, shit, like, I'm just a human. Like, come on, guys, like, give me, like, why are you literally treating me like I'm now going to prison? And like, that kind of, I had that experience once. And I basically was lucky enough that at that time I had a friend that a guy I'd befriended at AUT who was able to do a full lab test for me and verify my performance.
Yeah.
When I beat that, it was the race that I beat Chris Dawson on the line over McCurry, and I could beat him just on the line in the sprint. I got flagged there, and they were like, something's not right, and this and that. And I said, well, what's not right? And they're like, they never said like, no, we didn't like your jewels or this.
Yeah.
They never gave the detail. It was, and when you asked them and pried them for the detail, they would just not give you the detail. And it was that, like, it really. So then I was like, okay, well, I can get you a lab test. And they're like, yes, okay, get us a lab test. I'm like, okay, but we don't know what we're trying to prove to you, So what's the lab test going to do?
Do you feel like that's getting better, James? And
yes.
I mean, you've been doing this a lot of years, and I was in it in the early days. Like, do you feel like that? And there's so many different, MyWhoosh, Zwift. There's so many different platforms doing it. Are they all bringing their game up on that and getting a little more objective? You feel like in that scenario?
Yeah, objective. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna say Zwift is definitely
right?
better. Yeah, like other platforms, I'm like, yeah, sure, right. Like you look at some of the stuff that goes on there, and you're like, come on, where's the transparency? There is no transparency. Yeah, that's the one thing I like about Zwift Power is that you can make yourself as a rider fully transparent. Is that you can put all your jewels, and yes, you can put jewels from other platforms there actually too, and you can load them against your profile, so you can have. I've got now close to almost 300 jewel recordings there. So if somebody goes and I've got a history of jewel recordings all the way back, and like now we picked up this whole issue again, which people have picked up, the ghost watts on the V6 and the virtual shifting, which is causing miscalibrations, which I saw now, which I now had for the first time this last week in the WTRL, where suddenly now from my V6 I went from on average 3% to mass like a 6.5% variance. And I was like, whoa, but I didn't have the ghost watts with the watts we've ghosting, and that's the thing is, but then other platforms aren't being as transparent, and then being inconsistent, I think, is a better way. You look at it like this, and then you get the guys in the community, where people are calling you out, and you're sitting like, why are you calling me out? Like, what is your, like, what's your background? Like, how do you have the right to call me out, but you don't race at a level, or you have no results yourself, or the information that you're coming at me with.
Yeah, you're gonna get that.
Of course, but like it's kind of like you always look at them and you're like, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why I laugh. Is like now, I'm lucky enough. I had a third place in a really big local race here in October last year, Carapura Fly. I got third overall here. So it's like, again, people say, oh, but you don't race outdoors. I'm like, yeah, but there's no local races in New Zealand. They're very thin and far between. So, and but then and I do a local chain gang on a weekend. So yeah, if you want to see a performance, you're welcome to join in and see it there.
So I have the first reckless speculation of the show. James is over flooding to mask. He's putting too much data to make it too difficult to really see who he is.
It's confusing.
He's over disclosing.
You know it. Dodgy
he's really a 60-plus-year-old. He's the 60-plus-year-old with a 450-plus FTP that we race every day, right?
The NVIDIA broadcast is really good.
Okay, so
I got the eyes looking at I got the eyes looking directly at the webcam. That whole night thing. Now it's like that creepy, dodgy looking thing.
I do have a question about the over disclosure, right? So you stream every race. You stream a lot of your workouts.
Yep.
Do you think about sharing too much for competitors? It's not about the public, and that's great because we love watching you and all that other stuff. But do you think strategy wise, like, hey, maybe I should do this one offline or whatever?
No.
No.
I do it purely like I do the workouts on Twitch and stuff because I'm like, well, I want to talk to somebody while I'm doing it, or something to that sort of thing. It's not to show, well, here, this is the workout that I'm doing. It's more just it again, and it's something that I really enjoyed about it is that then you get people coming in asking questions, and you have that opportunity to teach people and help people grow the community, and that's again why I do this, the racing generally as well, is to show people, and people happy to answer questions if I can, during the races as to why things are happening, so then people can then learn to improve their own racing. I'm not,
I think,
go.
I was gonna say, I think the community totally appreciates that. I think, as Brian said in the intro, you are by far like the number one. When I say think of esports, I think of you, because you're streaming your races, you're streaming your training, you're in the community. It's funny, it's the first week of ZRL.
Oh,
You go on the Twitch channel because all of a sudden there's 700 streams in Zwift.
Yeah.
And those guys, and there is a lot of high level racers who do stream the races, but you see them 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Where you're there. I'm like, and it's super interesting from a person who has not high wattage to watch your workouts and go, holy F, you're 5 minutes at that? Are you kidding me? It's interesting. And you do answer questions. You're one of those guys. There's very few people that you could be going so hard, but you talk normal.
One of my hidden abilities, as Alex likes to say, the smiling assassin, is that I somehow have this poker face. And then
you'll be in the middle of the hardest interval of your workout, and people will be posting questions. I'm thinking, there's no way he's going to answer. His heart rate is crazy high, and then you talk totally normal.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
and you do talk to your teammates too, because when you're racing with the team, we can hear you interact with the team, and you're very sharing, but it's not labored. That's probably just who you are. But I do actually am a fan of the full body side camera now. We get to see the whole thing.
That new one that I did for the
world. For the Zwift Games qualifier.
Yeah.
Is that sort of a requirement now, or?
Yeah, so that was basically for us to join the Zoom call. It's not that's actually just because I moved now here to Queenstown, so the setup allows me to basically now move a camera in a position. And I was sitting there fiddling the night before with do I put it here or do I put it there? It's either you can have the straight on, like how you look at me generally, that face on, or or that now. Then I was I can do a side on one now, and you can see the full body on the side. Obviously then you don't see the facial expressions, but but you can see that on my Twitch stream, if you want to see it there.
Yeah. And the Zoom, but you get the full body of it. That's the thing and that's one of my notes here is about the stories we tell about the athletes is what I think drives the sport growth. Is we're talking to you, we care about you.
Yeah.
We care about all the other, Casey's story of racing, even Lee, hey, I'm going to join the Canadian Nationals, just I'll see if nobody signs up, I can, kind of be there. But he still drives himself to do it,
Always a dream, man.
It's always a dream because we have, as much as the audio only audience is not seeing these wonderful people walking on the beach behind Brian, the emotionless avatars across all platforms. There's a lot of emotionless avatars. When we see the people that are struggling in there or wherever they are, I remember watching during the pandemic, some of the USA races or something like that was a guy I raced with here locally in Northern California. He was on, I think, I can't remember his name, but he put his trainer outside and had the mountains in the back. That
was cool.
And it was you're not always in a pain cave, but you're seeing somebody's effort. You're seeing them whether they have a they're stoic. Even in the World Championships last year, because we haven't had the new World Championships happen, but the one last year with the guy who rode away in the Bjorn, he was very 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 stoic, but you can see it's the real person behind the avatar.
Yeah. But that's exactly it, and it's sorry, just to jump, is that's I think also why is that I stream everything and I want to talk to people and get involved, is try help tell them the story and grow, and Lee did, went and did the nationals. I'm trying to, if you have that goal, I'm trying to help people achieve it. What can I, that whole thing is what can I do to achieve that goal? Right. What can I do to help you as a rider or as a person who's either new to it or thing, is how can I help you achieve that? And that's I think, and again, coming back to the Discord thing, I think that's also why every now and again you'll see I turn on the team's Discord to let then other people hear the banter and stuff, how we talk, because then people learn as well and see the inside of actually what goes on within the team, and maybe they can learn something from it too. Yes. And see that it's not always just serious talking. There is actually quite a lot of banter and a lot of like, calling it out between each other and having goes at each other internally just for a bit of fun and a bit of motivation, which is always great to go. But that's the thing is and I think it's just down to me as a personality wise. I'm always the type of person, even with my work, I always want to teach people. I always want to help people. I always want to, no matter who, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the CEO to the base thing. I treat you generally as equally as possible. But then if you have a question, well, it's a question. And if I can help you answer it or teach you how to do it yourself, I'll happily teach you how to do it. I'm not going to, because you're X or you're Y, I'm not going to give you the information, because I don't want to give you away the competitive advantage. Well, that information's there. Everybody knows it. So it's what you do with it and how you apply it. You've still got to learn how to apply it and do it in the best way possible.
I agree. I don't know about the other guys, but I agree with that. It's
I appreciate it because we the four of us here have complained a lot in the last few weeks, right? The community's terrible racers, right? In general, like everybody's a terrible racer. We need people.
We want racing.
Like
we just don't want you to be stupid about it. How about
right?
that?
We try to do that too. Like I want people to think about what they're doing, and it takes seeing races like that and that team banter and things like that to people get into Zwift or get into indoor racing that have no racing experience, right? So they're learning by sitting in a peloton, not watching anybody, not interacting with other teams, anything like that. So you're providing this portal into how to race differently, how to bring it to the next level, the thought process through a race, right? Like, or analyzing it post race. And I hear you do it a lot. It's, I should have went here, or, go here instead of there, talking to your teammates, like right. It's the Jedi master, right? If you're Yoda and you teach them and they become a better Jedi than you, then I guess I've done my job, right? Like, it's like, I'm not scared if they learn it well enough and they're fit enough to beat me, then have at it, right? Like, but there's nothing to hide.
No, exactly, 100%. Like, and again, it's like, if again, that whole thing of teaching people to fish for themselves, that's great, Brian. That is hysterical.
Audio only audience. Brian just walked away from his camera and he's actually like green screened in the beach now.
He might be going to get his fishing pole to fish for himself, right?
I hope so. That'll be great.
Totally interrupted.
But that's it. It's like teaching people to fish for themselves and like learning and then they can share that information with somebody else. And that whole thing, and then that grows the whole community as a whole. That grows everybody, and that and grows the whole thing together. It's not just
that's I love doing the race breakdowns. Whether my race breakdowns are good or bad, I try to do it I do it for myself.
Yeah.
And then people have been asking me, like I used to do it for some of the other people in the community. And I like asking. That's why I asked you about, like, I know that you share everything, you disclose everything. I was just asking, do you have that thought that, like, hey, maybe, does it come in your mind to go, hey, maybe I don't want to share this. I know you want to share everything, but like, are you actually taking the time to think about it? Or are you just like, no, I just share everything?
I don't really, like, sometimes I take the moment to think about it, maybe like for a really big race, like Worlds or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be a bit more like, okay, I'm not going to say exactly what's going to happen or like that, or like I'll break it, but I'll happily, like in the post race, I'll happily break it down as to, like, we can talk about it later, but like, that was do or die.
Yeah.
That was like, but that's also where I think I'd actually love to start doing like what you did, those huddles. But it's also, you got to remember, maybe there's somebody there watching that has an idea of sort of thought of something that from a different perspective that you didn't think of. Then they come to you with a point and you're like, oh that could work. And then that changes your whole results for the next race. But if you didn't go and talk to the community like that, well, then you would never learn.
Yes.
So it's actually, it's about giving, but there's always an opportunity as well to take something as well, because somebody else might have something that you might not know. So actually you can benefit hugely from it too.
Yeah.
So I learned
learning from.
I learned to race from Casey, like just like you're saying. You're on stream doing your race grounds. So I watched Casey. I don't remember when it was. This is when he was doing the elite stuff, and literally just by watching him race, because he was always like half a watt, 0.8 watts per kilogram less than everyone else, and it was finishing in the top 5. So that's how I learned from watching him, and then eventually interacting and becoming friends with him. But that's a very big part of Zwift. This Zwift Racing Score, which tomorrow goes officially live for everyone. It is so
we made it 44 minutes.
Yeah.
without talking about racing score, but now you brought it in. So
Well, no, I'm just saying.
coming in tomorrow. I didn't even
it's
know
the way
about it, but
forward.
Go ahead. All right.
But it brings to light, just like what you were saying, no one knows how to race. I shouldn't say no one knows how to race. The racing styles, because no one does it. And that's the thing. Like, there's no education aspect to it. So someone being in your
We're the
stream
educators,
chatting.
Brian. Come on.
Yeah, we're trying. We're trying.
I'd like to know James' perspective on this, because I know what it does for me. Do you go back and watch your races and you think about, like, I know what I was thinking at that moment in the race. Do you go back and watch your races and are like, yeah, I completely read that wrong when my heart rate was 175. Like, that wasn't that big of a gap, or that was way bigger than I saw it, or like, do you analyze it like that sometimes too?
I don't necessarily go watch my own race back. I'll go watch the broadcast back. And I think I actually quite like doing that, because you see it from a different camera angle, and then but 100% I do definitely think about my races post, even if I'm not watching something, I'm always thinking about it or something going on. And, I definitely, as I said earlier, I overanalyze and I think about things, and I think about all the different possibilities that could have gone, and changed. Is like, I would have loved to, I would love this. I'd love to this Zwift Elite series, as much as I really enjoy it. I'd love there to be less climbing in it, because holy smokes, there's so much climbing in it. And I think, and as what we spoke about, Casey, in your previous streams, is I think, as much as I agree with it, but I think there's too much of a focus nowadays going towards one thing, and I also feel like it's a shame as well that we've lost that team element. We've hugely lost that team element, which we had, which I think is why I enjoyed those original WTRL Premier Divisions, because it was much more team. It was much less individual focused. It was more team focused. And yes, obviously, I think we were really lucky that we had a team of incredible depth, and we still have a team of absolutely huge, incredible depth. So, we had there was huge discussions around who gets the 3 passes, because, well, anybody could get them and do really well in them. But it was, and I think, with other teams, I think it's a bit more prevalent as to who the 3 strongest riders are. And, and then I think, but that's the one thing I really liked, is that team aspect. And I think it's a real shame that that's not such a big focus anymore, and the teams aren't being rewarded for contributing, for being consistent, for being right up there. And I think it's also a breakdown of the prize money, is that whole, like, what they're also doing with the Zwift games was like almost like a winners takes all type thing.
Yeah, which is weird.
Which was just such a shame, because you're not competing. You get somebody who just misses it out in the last round, and then suddenly you get nothing.
Yeah, it seemed
but
weird.
You've been leading the whole season, and you've been consistently good the whole season. You just have one bad round, now you're out. It's like that double points thing that they were doing. Same thing.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they're trying things, and it's like a good learning. Like it's data. We're gathering data. But
don't try it at the Premier level.
Yeah, I agree. There needs to be some more Zwift Labs pilot stuff.
Yeah,
but I love what they're doing. I love that they're innovating that kind of stuff. I love that. So don't get me wrong, but I think they just sometimes do it in the wrong way.
Yeah,
agreed. Okay, you had more, Casey, or
no? I was saying I kind of had the same observation watching it. Was it looking at outdoor professional, like, you have different styles of racers that could be successful in one-day events versus tours versus climbing. It's like the most winningest Tour de France rider gets dropped on every hill, right? Like that. We need something like that for the inside too, right? Where right now, at least in the last season or two, all of the elite level riding seems to favor a specific style rider.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to have things for different style riders. And I think that's true. Yeah, we're seeing that. I think even down in the community level too, and that's some of the arguments with the stuff coming with the community racing too. It's recognizing that we have different styles of riding, and people are successful at different things. And I mean, honestly, back to James, seeing the ride you did to qualify for the UCI Nationals.
Oh yeah, we wanted to bring that up.
You were a sprinter,
yeah.
And I'm watching this, and I'm like, I mean, I think we have to talk about it a little bit. I'm watching it, and I'm like, I've done a lot of riding at that level years ago, and sorry, James, and I think I can be this honest with you. I've known you for a long time. I thought there was no hope. Like, halfway through that race, I'm like, he hasn't scored a single point, and he hasn't been close to scoring a point on a single hill up to this point. Like, I I was watching your stream and I was like, nope, like this is it. Sorry.
Yep.
So
That's the exact same
I'll
thoughts.
ask the formal question here. Because I asked you this, I think I was on my stream and you were in my chat, James, where I was like, was this a strategy? Did you go in like thinking I need to save it for the end or whatever? And so you responded in my chat, but I'll let you respond. Was it a strategy, or were you like, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants and I got to catch up?
Yeah, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I had to catch up. I had to do something. But like honestly, like so, I think Josh Harris also broke it in his YouTube video. He also broke it down quite nicely as well. And I because he messaged me, he's like, hey, can I get hold of you, like your video from your race? I was like, yeah, go for it. And I had no idea what he was doing with it. Right. And then a few days ago, I turned in to see his thing and then turned in and he's like, I just want to highlight, and he goes through his whole experience with Wolves and he's like, I just want to highlight like this ride. And he broke it down perfectly. And I think, and I'll talk it from my point, I was coming into that race where I knew for that first sprint point at the base of that first race, no point. Absolutely. There are 120 riders, I'm going to say, or 100. It was like, everybody's fresh. Everybody's revving to go. And there's 20 points.
Yeah.
And we know the dynamic of my whoosh. No chance. If you do that and you commit to that, you're blowing yourself for the top of the climb. You're blowing yourself potentially for the finish. So now I'm losing out on potentially, okay, I'm going to say 40 points. I'm now losing out on 40 points potentially, right? Which then also puts you in deficit for the third race, which is then there's a horrifically large amount of race, right? So I was even hanging around 60th place doing 5.5 watts and I wasn't even moving up. That was and that was wild. That start was absolutely wild. Like people and just numbers with people doing, and I was just like, this is nuts. Like I was like, what the hell's going on? So then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be settling at this point pace and just go up the climb. And if I get the opportunity to sneak 19th, 18th over the top, great. Then there's a chance of me with my being slightly larger to then get a few riders. We go down the downhill, picked up Chris Dawson. Luckily, that was great. Now, and that thing, we could then catch some more riders to the finish and get some more points. Sadly, that didn't happen in the first race. So I was like, well, this sucks. Because a few points would have been great. Third race, I was like, okay, that finish does sort of suit me, but it does also suit the slightly lighter rider because it is a weird like duration. It is a slightly longer, slightly shorter, really weird. And then again, I was expecting the race to explode a lot more. My word, how that bunch stay together was just beyond me. That was such a big bunch every time. So I was like, that first time up, I was like, I knew I wasn't going to go for the first one. Same thing like the first, like the sprint at the bottom. People are fresh, people are eager. People burn some matches. I was falling off the back on that first relay. I was like, whoa, okay, this is spicy. Like, wow, okay. Great. Okay, Brad got some more points. Okay, so he's now the favorite rider in South Africa. I'll happily support him if he gets through. Get to the second lap, and I'm falling out the back here, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like what am I missing? Then I see Brad's behind me, and he's got points, and I was like, Brad, do you want me to drop back to let you in? At this point, the front bunch just rolled off the front and was growing a gap, and I was like, Brad, do you need me to wait and I can pull you back into it? And he's like, no, I'm dead. You go. So I was like, oh boy, this is 8 seconds or 10 seconds. I've got to shut down or whatever it is. And I was like, well, okay, let's just, because I know that I knew in the first lap that they were set up quite a lot. So I was like, okay, just don't ride full gas, ride pretty hard, ride tempo. You should be able to get back. Hopefully you find somebody. And I saw Scott Cantazzaro in front of me. I was like, great. If he comes, we'll work together. We can get there. Luckily, the gas pedal came right off. So I got back just after the first big roller. And I was like, I've got momentum here. There's a downhill on the other side with these little rollers. Hey, like, I don't have any points. I don't think they're going to watch me. So, hey, I've got momentum. Let's just use this and roll with it. 6 watts a kilo. I rolled off at the front at 6 watts a kilo. I didn't even have to do like a big sprint to get off the front, which again suits me even more because I struggle with those really big hard efforts repeatedly, like all the time, because it's just who I am as a rider. So I got that Johan Noren to come across. Great. Got him to do some work before the climb. And I was like, cool. I'm happy to sit on the front, just drag it out and just pull you up. And if you take it over the top, that's fine. Because it meant that I didn't have to go right into my reserves to hold the bunch and not secure points. I'm like, we got 15 seconds over the top and we had 3 seconds by the top of it, which then again allowed me to breathe up, sit up, enjoy it a bit and just, enjoy the scenery, take some points. I was like, sweet, I've actually scored some points in this. Great. And then then I didn't realize it at the time, but that Pucker and Ollie had gone off the front. Got to the same point, had the same issue with my momentum. I was like, well, just do it again. I got off the front again, and they let us go, and I was like, wow, this is weird. Like, clearly people just weren't expecting the bunch to go faster up the other side or something, and I was like, okay, look, James, you got to just keep going, just keep applying the pressure and see what gap you can get, and hopefully it's enough over the top. And
did you know
1 second too short? Who?
Did you know after that first climb and getting points that you still needed more? Like, did you know, or did you think
I knew I needed more.
Okay.
I knew I needed more. I knew 20 points was 19 points was way short. Like, I knew I needed.
Okay.
I had to just.
Yeah.
I had to do something
but
again.
The game was telling you. That was a benefit of the game,
Yeah.
having the point scores live in
live.
the game. So,
Yes.
you didn't have anybody helping you sort of tabulate it.
No, nobody. No, you didn't need any tabulation. You had it all there in front of you on the top left-hand side. You knew exactly where you stood at that point, and I knew I was like, oh, I'm 30th. Oh, great! Like, I'm on the verge. Like, if I just get 20 points, I can get into this. Like, I can.
Yeah.
I don't need a front base, but then I had the problem with the momentum, and I was like, cool. Like, let's give this a go again, and let's try it out again. But Norin again, Don tried to get across, and he nearly got across, and I was like, you poor bugger, when he didn't get there, and he dropped back. And we got caught by 2-3 riders over the top, and I just was trying to give everything and anything and just trying to throw my body up and over that climb. And
what was going through your mind? What was going through your mind when you were getting closer and closer? Like, what were the things going through your mind? Can you recall those things besides pain and suffering?
Yeah, basically over the top, I was like, this finish line is 50 meters too far, and why is there suddenly now 15% gradient when it was 10%? Like, well, I don't understand this. Like, who did like?
But is there any like personal things you draw from, or like things you like you go like? You go back to when you were a kid and like, I was doing this one thing and I did this. Like, is there anything you go back to, or is there anything is it just live?
It's just live. Like, I am just like, okay, James, you just give everything. Just find something somewhere deep down in your soul and like find a hip flex or a hip drive just to give that extra like power to get you over the top. Just come on, like, just close your eyes and just keep going. And it's something I also find when I'm doing training as well, is that often when I'm doing indoor training is I zone out. I very rarely even listening to the music that's playing on my streams, or because that's the same music that in theory will go through my speakers or my headset. I'm very rarely paying attention to what that is. Yes,
is
it's
that
quite
like
nice
meditation?
to have some, I don't know. Like, it's something I've just always done.
What do you mean you zone out? Like you don't think of anything?
I'm not thinking of anything. Like, I am very rarely thinking about the weather, all this, and like, yes, sometimes on a really hard interval, I'll be focusing. Okay, breathing, keep steady, keep smooth, and just
technique.
But I'm not.
You focus on technique,
just focusing about technique, And then if I'm really on the edge, I'm closing my eyes and I'm counting breaths just to try burn time, because we all know what happens when you're suffering. Time grinds to an almighty halt and it doesn't progress.
Yeah, right.
So I'm trying to take something off that time and just trying to focus on.
Okay, so you're now in the last part of the race.
Yeah.
And so you're not focused on anything other than just go, but you're driving.
Just go.
You're like, hey, hip flexor, get a little bit more. How can I squeeze this more? So what are you thinking? How do I squeeze into this World Championships?
Pretty much. Yeah. Like, I need to squeeze every last watt of power out of my body. Like, okay, what are you doing? Yeah, obviously breathing. Yeah. Okay, core steady. Okay, now we're sprinting. We're out of the saddle. Remember, driving the hips forwards, like like those track starts that you're doing. So you're driving your hip flexors and driving the foot forwards and down. So you're really engaging the full body to like pull into it and just like, okay, let's just get over this 15%. Okay, now we have the 15%. You need 2-3 kicks just to make sure you get the momentum back, because Freyet was coming like an absolute freight train. Okay, we just need to make sure we don't lose multiple positions behind him. Let's just like that whole thing, just keep the pedals turning, keep the body going, because if you stop now, that could be the end of it. And let's just keep going. Like, let's just get it to the finish line.
And you get there, and then you cross the line. And how's that feeling?
Man, that was so okay. Just to build this up as well, we were moving down to Queenstown that day as well. So we were packing that whole week before. We had delayed. Luckily enough, my wife gracefully and said, like I said, can we just delay the move down to Queenstown by 1 week so that I can race at home? Like, we're like, cool. So, she did vast majority of all the packing of all the boxes, because she took a week off work between her jobs, to like 2 weeks off, and like to pack the house, get everything ready. So like I didn't really have to do much. I just kind of did what I could between working everything, and then so got up, did the thing, raced, finished the race, saw I was 16th, 17th. I was messaging people. I was like, is this real? Is this legit? Like, is there something I'm missing? Like, okay, like I was elated. But by that time I was cooling down, the movers had already rocked up. I have to now break down my whole study. I helped those movers pack up that house in my national cycling kit. There's a photo of me that my wife took of me carrying my computer and stuff. Yeah,
you're in the last part of the race. You're trying to find hip flexors. You weren't thinking about, you know what? I got to do these boxes. I got to pack this stuff up. You weren't thinking about that until you crossed the line.
Unfortunately, no. I was like,
I think we can all relate to that, though, right?
Yeah.
You finish a race and real life is immediately in your face, right?
Yeah.
Like you finish a race, you're completely tuned out of everything in your house, and I look at my phone and I've got a text from my wife or something. I'm like, oh, there's a real life going on around me. I got to do something now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get straight back into it. And that's again like IRL racing, where you don't, you're at the event, you kind of have that
you're there.
downtime between it a little bit just to like reflect. And that was it. And then basically we had our first overnight stop, because it was a 1,500, almost 1,000-mile drive is to do.
Wow.
Like that's the total journey. But we had an 8-hour drive to the first place. There was then a mistake, a mess up with the move, that they then undersized how much stuff, so they couldn't take everything. We only left Auckland for the 8-hour drive at just before 3 o'clock. So yep, we arrived at our accommodation the night before, basically at midnight, through a massive storm at the last hour. And what did I eat that whole day? 2 gels in the Subway footlong.
So how did your legs feel sitting in a truck for 8 hours after doing
luckily I was in
that?
our car, so it was good. So I was like, it was comfortable. And my wife did all the driving basically. So she gets motion sickness as a passenger, so it's great. I had a driver, and she did it all. She did the vast majority of it. We just switch every now and again, and I'll just let her take a rest. And we had the dogs as well behind us, and they were great. Right. They just slept the whole way down. And luckily my body, and that was one thing that was, again, I think it's a testament to the work that Alex and I has done and we've done, is that my body actually felt really good. I didn't have cramps. I didn't feel like,
your coach,
when I got out of the car, I had to like unfold my body, and I was like really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that's just some of those sessions that you see that are just absolute, just mental pushes and mental testers. And then I think it definitely pays dividends to those workouts.
Yeah.
And the work that Alex and I have done over the years. So
let me ask you: do you prefer the process or the event? Like, you hate training so that you can do an event, or do you love the training and love the process, and then you just gauge your efforts and all your training with the event?
I like both.
Okay. The whole process.
I like the whole thing, because I can think of, but then again, also I think that's the one massive benefit about having a coach, and a really good coach like Alex, is that I don't have to think about my training. I literally wake up or get the email from Training Peaks. This is your workout. Great. Pick it up and go do it. And I because again, we've built that trust, and we've built that over the time, is that I know that there's a purpose behind this workout, or there's a reason for this workout. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm done the workout, I give him the feedback that he requires, because then he adjusts things as he needs. He adjusts things per workout. He changes the things per workout. If you give him, if you say, oh, I really struggle with this. No, I need some, and I think, the Zwift Elite Series, is not obviously a massive focus at the moment. So I wasn't the freshest going into it. So I really did suffer up that 10 minutes. I did 460 watts for that first 3 minutes, and I was barely hanging off the back. We both discussed and said, those numbers were good. They were right. But you can see you're fatigued. And I was like, probably, I agree with you, with everything and everything else. And so we've dialed it back. I had a weekend off, basically off the bike. I've been on the couch and just walking the dogs around, and that was great. And now, I can definitely feel the difference. 2 more weeks of really hard training to go, and then flying off to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Anybody else have anything? Because I wanted to ask about that, holding that fitness, which you have a really good coach, but like, did you consider holding that fitness because you have other events that you're trying to do, or you're living through what you have and your focus is the World Championships?
Yeah, I think it's focus on what, like, obviously is Worlds. Like, everybody, like, as much as people try and downplay it, and I think people have some personal reasons for like full whoosh and worlds and and thing. So, but I think it's always a great honor and always a great thing to be able to compete at that level. Like crikey, like I have now been lucky enough that I've now on my 3rd world championships.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I've been able to compete and the first one I was 26th. I had unfortunate sticky watts where my power meter was at the critical moment on the final lap. I lost it, so I lost the bunch, and then I was forever then chasing. And then the second one, I got 8th in the world. Yeah, couldn't ask for anything more of it over a really tough and challenging course. And then this year, geez, I got the top 20. Crikey, I'll take it. Like I think that again, I knew this platform and these courses didn't suit me for these like semifinals. Did not suit me. Like that at all. Like yes, the third race that is a little bit more towards me, but no, they don't suit me. They don't. It's not in theory within my wheelhouse as a rider.
Yeah,
so it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic.
Who you are and what was presented to you. But you worked it and maybe analyzed it and had, this is my game plan, and then you executed that, and you were successful.
Yep. Because I knew as well that like I don't have that big repeatable power, so then I need to use something like that breakaway then to adjust to it so that I don't have to ride into my weakness. I can ride to my strength of being able slightly bigger power for longer power. I can use that like my big raw watts to then edge that out. I have big I have big up to 30-40 seconds, but I don't have that repeatable 40 seconds or that repeatable minute. I have that and I have that bigger power of like a team time trial. Like I really again, I think that's where you see it. And then I had to, with all the racing that you do, you always learn. It's like you learn to read a race.
Yep.
So I was like, well, this is how I have to do it now. Okay, this is one of the options that I thought about. Cool, let's execute, which is going to then be very different and a very interesting dynamic with that in-person 20-person final. So crikey, that's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Following up on that, is it more satisfying that you had that sort of like, hey, I'm not gonna matter in this race, or I don't think I'm going to matter in this race. I'm going to do the best I can. And is it more satisfying at the end and is instead of like, hey, this is a race that suits me perfectly and boom, I execute it, or I didn't execute it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is more rewarding, that I got into the top 20 because hey, I made it happen and I adjusted on the fly and I made it, yes, something wasn't going to the original plan, but now I've adjusted it and I've now got it to go to plan and I've got a result out of it and walking away with a ticket to the finals.
Yeah.
I think it definitely was, as a ride, is definitely up there with one of the more rewarding rides.
Yeah.
Still
of all your successes before this.
Yeah, 100%. Like it was one of those where I came from the back, from the fences, I was on the rings and I was like, I was down and out and I made, and again, you learn it that you can make things happen even though you think you're down and out. Like if you give it and you commit to it, you can make things happen.
Well, it's a good perspective for others to realize coming into it, right? You came into it with realistic expectations, but you can't hit the shot that you don't take. So why not take the shot? Even coming into it, like, okay, this doesn't fit my wheelhouse. Yep. You had plenty of excuses to not make the finals, right? But it's like I'm that moment arose in the race. You read it with your experience and you took the shot, and the other guys read it just the same way, right? Like this isn't the guy I'm worried about. Like you knew you weren't the marked man in that event. Had that been a different kind of event, you were marked, right?
Yeah. And I think talking to that is basically if you look back to the 2023 World Champs with that Scottish World, I was flagged as a favorite, and I was like shit. Like I realized how much pressure I was putting myself under that because I was marked as a favorite, and I was like, oh, like I was like, and that second race didn't suit me as a rider, like, but the platform and the way that the ride and the style of that climb, I made it work for me because, as we all know, Casey, you and the guys, we all know, using gradients, using the accelerations, using the bumps, positioning, this and this. I then made it work for me. I then made it. And then the fact that I then got in that last sprint in that final to get into it, closing my eyes and getting called to the line by my wife was basically the reason why I got in. I then got there. So then, and that's it. Because I knew that Glasgow crit, Doesn't suit me. Suits little riders like Cagel Power, who's really squirty, really tiny, but can spike his power. Yeah,
there's physiology and genetics that play into it, but you also know the game really well. You know, you try to know the platform that you're on as well as possible, and you use that. That's the racecraft that comes with a lot of that. So, and
a lot of the racecraft you can also leech as well between Whoosh and Zwift. I've seen and I've learned as well. Like a lot of it is very, very similar. How using the terrain and that.
Yeah, even the other ones like the Bike Terra and the Indivella, like just kind of like riding wheels, like picking up. Oh, I can pick up this and I can do that. It's like bike racing, but it's on a specific platform. So yeah, it's fun to watch. I had a question about when you have a success or you have a failure. How long do you hold on to that mentally?
Oh man, it varies. Like I've had some where I've had it a weeks. I'll be like, if it's something like I could have done it and I could have fixed it. It could be like, but I've also then learned, maturing as a rider and as time, is that try not to dwell on it. Like go on it and sit, like as you said with the huddles, which is always great. Talk to somebody about it, talk through it. Okay, what can you do to improve? Okay, I want to improve on this. Okay, this is now my focus for the next time I do a race. And that is the sole thing I'm focusing on the next race. I don't care about the result. If I come last, I come last. But if I execute that one thing properly, I've done my job. So that's something like I also say to people when people come in, oh, I'm starting Zwift racing, what can I do? Well, I say go do as many races as you can, but you need to be the person, you need to be winning those races with the lowest watts per kilo. You need to be the most efficient riders. That whole thing is like practicing your racecraft, practicing your bunch position, practicing using the draft efficiently. And that whole so that's what I try and do, is that if I then do something and it doesn't work out, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? What must I focus on? Or what was it that I had missed out on?
Yeah, that was my next follow-up on that is like you said, like you have like one thing you focus on. Like let's say you had a mistake or you had a bad result in a race that maybe you thought you were going to do well in. Do you have pre-race goals, in-game race goals, and then post-race sort of analysis of those, sort of like, because things change, right?
Yeah, of course. I think it's a case of like the Zwift Elite Series, the goal was to try and qualify. Then the goal, and one of the goal was try and be in that front group in that first half of the grade. Cool. Then it was just figure it out as you go, fly it by the seat of your pants for the rest of it to try then get back, to get into the bunch and move forwards, using your racecraft to then improve your positioning. So yeah, of course, when I'm doing other races where I know I have much better chance of winning, of course it's to win. Like who else is not to win and do well? But it's also a case of sometimes I am realistic and I am, if I know I'm not going to win it, I will still give it my all and give my thing, but I'll try and do it or change it or control it that I can win it, or improve my positioning or do as best as I can.
So when did you start becoming the protected rider? Or if you are like, hey, did you start like, hey, I want to be the protected rider, or I want to be I want to go for the win? Like when you got onto the team? Because some people are like, I like being a teammate. I don't want to be the protector. I don't want to be the main person.
I'm also the type of guy, you give me a job and I'll do it. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like I'm happy to be the teammate. I'm happy to be the guy winning. I'm happy to be the guy going for and that's again, like I think but then there was also you would always have 3-4 guys for the finish. We'd never have one person for the finish. We'd have guys with particular roles, or like James, you're going for the sprint. Okay, Tom, you're going, or Tom and James, you're going here. Richie, here, this is yours. This is, Richie's generally our guy who's covering breaks because he's really good in a break and really good because he's got that cyclocross background and physiology. He's really good at those covering the moves and plugging the holes, but we, and then again, we saw, and as I've, I got a really big finish on me. So, I did obviously always had been flagged for the finishes of most races. But never been, I never went and said, I want to be the protected rider. I'm always happy
not
to
in not in an arrogant way, but more of just to being a benefit of the teams that you've been on and your sort of that freedom to be like, hey, I feel good about this race. I feel like I can do well. But if it doesn't pan out and I can help another teammate, that's fine. Instead of being that sort of like, is that just because in throughout your career of cycling indoors, outdoors, wherever, has it just been a luxury of the team, or is that also part of you? Like you find teams
part
that
of
are
me.
like that? Part of you?
I try to find teams like that where it's not just like you this is you and this is your role.
Right.
Okay, cool. But like, you know, people have off days, people have different days, people have, and that's one thing again I like about the team as well, is that you can talk, you can have your ideas, and people listen, and people discuss, and people, you know, so there's no like, okay, you do what Greg says. Everybody does what Greg says. No, you can also argue with him back and say, well, what about this idea and that idea, or no. And then if you're feeling bad on the day, you can happily say you feel bad idea, and then there's adjustments. And then people aren't selfish enough with it. You know, people aren't selfish in the team that if they are a favored rider, that if they're feeling bad on the day, they don't say it. They do say it. They say, hey, I'm not feeling great. So then we make adjustments during the race to then, you know, that you know, Brian's having an off day. Okay, cool. Brian, you now go for this. You help here. You plug this. Okay, Richie, your focus is now on the finish.
Have you experienced either within your own teams or maybe your competitors where you come into a race too scripted? Like this is the way we want a race to go, and somebody does something that, you know, in your brain when it happens, you're like, well, that's completely dumb, but we didn't have that in our script, and now we're all confused and nobody knows what they're doing because it didn't go as planned. And I mean, have you learned from that? I mean, you guys seem super moldable during a race, right? You deal with what's thrown at you, but I mean, have you experienced that in the past and learned from it, where you just go in like, we're going to win a sprint, and somebody goes crazy, right?
Yeah, I think it's a case as well. Like everybody has had that in the past, and I think one that we all got caught off guard. I think, you know, as an example, as a team, we got caught off guard was one of those knockout races. Those with knockout races at the very beginning. I think because it was such a new style of racing and so very different. I think it was a case of it was so unscripted and it was so different from the norm. We were all a bit like, whoa, like wow, like okay, crikey. Yeah, and it was also, and I think as well that one of those first elimination races, they were trying to mark me as the Finn. I was like, guys, like I'm struggling. I was also coming just off a break between training, and I was just like, guys, I'm not at my best. I'm really struggling here. We need to adjust. And they were like, okay, cool. Like we'll made the adjustments, and we try to, you know, get it on and going through, and that was it. But yeah, it's a case of, as well as it's you as a rider being able to also be and realize that racing is fluid. Racing very rarely goes as per script. Like if you can't be adjustable on the fly and think you're either playing against bots who are very predictable, or you're in a category that you shouldn't be in, and you need to be in a higher category, because then you're sandbagging to the nth degree. Like racing should be hard. Racing should be unpredictable. Racing should never be simple. You should never go in and say, okay, this is my game plan, and you execute it and you win out of it or something. There should always be some other variable that you've missed, or something that makes you go, has to have change on the plan or adjust on the plan. Very rarely it'll ever go perfect. I'm sure you can talk to that, Casey, and agree, and like everybody else that races here, that you can agree to it. It's like you've gone into a race beforehand and you're like, yeah, okay, this will happen, or this could happen, or this could happen, that could happen, and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And then in the race you go, if something happens, you're like, oh, I have to do this now.
I need to get some clarification. Hold on. I need to get some clarification. So race as hard as you can, but be less wattage than everyone else. So is that...
Yeah. Well, like race as hard as you can in terms of like, you know what I mean? Being sneaky, being like, you know, like that kind of thing, but then be efficient.
Efficiency, but like it should be hard efficiency.
It's kind of how, like, when I'm doing different, like if I'm doing a mass start race, it's draft as much as possible, but when it's hard, it's absolutely hard. And then last year when I was in A category during CRL, like every single, I got dropped on Titan's Grove, and by the time we got down to Aquarium, like, you know, the Aquarium, we had caught up because everyone was going so slow, because everyone knew that the hilly KOM was the point they were attacking. Those were the two efforts. And I forget what race it was, but yeah. So that's part of what it is, you know.
Yeah, and
had the lowest spot KOM. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found what Barney's describing, you know, in the team element, we're starting to see a little bit of that. I know Brian White and I are in the ladder racing. It's it's, 5-on-5 racing where the mindset has to change, right? You can't come in with that, oh, it's a typical B category race or A category race. You draft till the end. It's always a mass sprint, that kind of thing. It's like you have to react, because one guy getting away is, that's 10% of the power of the pack, right? You let him get a gap, you may not get it back, kind of thing. So it changes the mindset. And it's fun that I'm starting to experience what I used to get at the elite level in some of that community stuff.
But also as well as like we're seeing it as well, more breakaways in the elite level racing and the ZWS races, and it's definitely more aggressive racing, because I think because of the updates and the changes of the dynamic, people are more willing to move, and also yes, because of the courses as well. The courses are more aggressive and do sort more aggressive racing and do have that, which is great to see. So there is more people that are willing to throw their, but again, it comes back to, I think we would have seen more of it if there was more of a team element in the ZWS series rather than the individual element.
Yeah.
So we would have seen actually more aggressive racing, more breakaways, more people trying to get things. Yes, there was an element of it in that elite race, the Richmond elite race that we saw, but meh.
So I have a question about what's like the top innovation that you've seen in the last like couple of years from the platforms to be like helping the riders experience more of a dynamic racing, as they say. Like, we want more dynamic racing.
Yeah, those Premier Division races and those like actual like verified racing, but then as a software thing, I'm gonna say virtual shifting. Oddly,
you like virtual shifting?
I like virtual shifting.
Okay.
Virtual shifting for me is really good, because it removes for me as a sprinting type of person, it removes that mechanical thunking that like we all know when you change gears mechanically on a bike, when you're under power, you wake up the whole neighborhood with those gear changes because there's a thunk. So that
you got to be smoother. What kind of cycling are you doing? You got to be smooth. I got mechanical. I know how to shift. Don't you know how to shift?
That's DI2 shifting. I've got DI.
I got mechanical. I know how to shift.
I got to the point of getting DI2 on my bike because of mechanical shifting on the thing was always, because I want to be changing in sprints or thing, and I underload so that I'm not shifting gears. And again, that's we can go down that whole rabbit hole of 100% training difficulty. Does it have a place for it in racing? Some people say no. Some people say yes. I'm on the verge of saying I prefer 50%, because you don't sprint a bike outdoors with a 14-kilogram weight attached to your wheel.
Yeah. No.
Sprinting in virtuals is such a weird phenomenon, such a weird feeling.
I think I would agree with that, but it can't be. You got to force some trainer difficulty.
Yes,
the old-fashioned 0% trainer difficulty guys that can only sprint in this gear at this cadence.
You need smart
you got to have
difficulty.
some.
Where it could kind of like
something.
estimate or
but
something.
I think it's just the way that the trainers and the courses are designed that you get suddenly you turn a corner and you're suddenly in a 13% gradient. And then the trainers just suddenly all just grab onto those flywheels and your knees explode. Like, again, prime example to this, I'll talk to it is like Singapore. Singapore last year when we were all on watt bike, atom bikes, and we were on 100% trainer difficulty with the Bluetooth shifters, got onto the stage. Suddenly now all the shifters stopped really working, not really being responsive. And we all came together as riders, and I came up with the suggestion, can we drop it down to 50% trainer difficulty, because we're going to blow out our knees if we can't change gears, and we're suddenly in this Glasgow sprint courses and we're hitting 10% gradients. We're going to blow our knees out.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you drop it to 50%, suddenly those bikes actually became rideable.
Yeah.
And a less of an impact of having to be able to change gears. And I think that's where I'd love to see it where, personally, I'd like to see it for 50% trainer difficulty, because it becomes more natural. The way that the trainers respond to it, the way that the bikes respond, you as a rider can ride more naturally in the gears. And I think it'll go away and get rid of that tendency for people to grind 50 cadence. That indoor trainer out of the saddle, standing there grinding away. Yes, there's indoors, so there's no error penalty, and it's I think that 50% training difficulty will also remove that, because you can ride at a more natural cadence. You can turn the bigger gears, have the higher flywheel speed, so that you can then sprint on top of it. So you're not suddenly now grinding away. I was going up the grade in my 39, 26 or 24. I was almost in my 28 in my baby year going up, and I was going at as hard as I could.
So you had virtual shifting in the Zwift?
No,
game?
we got an email. We got an email the day before saying
no.
if you're riding a Kicker V6, we suggest you do a full factory spin down, power cycle the bike, and disable virtual shifting, because there is a problem. Wahoo and discussions on the sides, Wahoo are going to fix it by the sounds of it this week.
Okay.
So
But
they
if you
found the issue.
if you are using
isolating.
virtual shifting, you're using the Zwift Plays, or
Yes.
do you have a Kicker Ride?
No, I got Zwift Players.
Because there's only two options besides a Kicker bike, right?
And Neo.
Neo,
Theory,
and
Neo, you know,
and
you got those
Atom.
Neos, you got your Stages bikes, you've got
all the smart bikes have the buttons to do it. And
Doretto's, your Justo 2 now has it as well. It connects to Di2.
Oh,
those were the new, like, just
what's the control?
ago.
How do you shift? What's the what's
Di2? So you connect it with your shifters.
Oh,
and
to
you control
Di2.
it with Di2.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
think of it that way. See, so that's virtual gears, but with within
that's
their
what,
own.
That's what Lee's been wanting for years.
Totally.
So that's coming. You can connect it to 11 speed and obviously 12 speed with if you have 11 speed with that connector. But yeah, I think that's why I'm saying I think virtual gears is definitely. I think it is one of the better innovations, because you can then drop a bike on top of it, change bikes between the family, ride on it. You're not stuck to gears. This is misshifting because now you put this bike on, or you've knocked the bike and now the hanger's out, and you know that whole it changes your whole experience.
What about pack dynamics? 4 whatever, 1 or 2?
I like the current Zwift pack dynamics. I really like them.
Yeah,
I think they've
agree.
They've got
I
it
like
to the
them too.
point where it rides like a natural bunch outside. It is super fluid, super dynamic. You know, I like it now that not everybody in the bunch super tucks, which then slows the bunch speed down. You know, if you compare it to other platforms, the draft is nowhere near as blocky, nowhere near as on and off, and as brutally just savage. I find.
You tried Bike Terra?
Sorry.
You need to try Bike Terra.
I need to try that, and I have to be honest. I need to go.
No, it's not about the drafting. No, it's about like the visual of the flow of the groups that ride together. Like it's always trying to go to the center, and it's like you can steer, like you can arrow steer out of the way of things, and then but you let go of the steering, and it kind of flows you right back to the center. And it's sort of this. It's actually what I wanted from RGT when they did their steering, but you should try Bike Terra. Moving on. I don't want to get into the weeds of
You
that.
guys can't steer in the elites, right? You can't steer.
No,
you can't
we
steer,
have
but-
braking and steering disabled.
But you have a Zwift
Okay.
Play.
Yes.
Do you? This is my point here. I'm going to say my point. I want bigger shifter buttons. I think the shifter buttons are too small. I think the next version. I think the braking. I think the steering button should be the shifter.
Great.
But
I think those steering paddles are great, but also I think the fact
steering
that you just
paddles
have
are
to
great.
move your fingers, you have to move your finger slightly back to then engage the gears. Nah, easy.
oh no, I put mine on my hood. But I just think the button
and I
needs to
think
be
it's
bigger.
something coming. You know, I think it's something coming that you can reconfigure the buttons to do different things on it, so
That's
that you
fine
can move.
too.
That
I
would be
just want
great.
the button bigger. I want.
But
a
again,
bigger
it's also
button.
it's like you look at it as well. Like somebody, I think Zwift Insider was like, "Oh, the update's going to have the draft power up numbers in the thing," and then it suddenly is not there in the update. It's like, well, where did it go?
That's we talk about that every other week.
Yeah,
You
I know,
don't
but
need-
I'm saying it's like things like that, like like that HUD change. You know, that's a great step forward. Yes, we've been crying it for ages, but again, I think there's stuff in the background that we don't
For
know
sure.
about.
Yeah.
I wish people would come and have a talk about.
It's the nobody asked for this, the thanks. Nobody asked for this, but thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you some more. I have some more questions. Anybody have
for
questions?
it.
I got more questions here. Who do we watch for the besides you? Who are you watching in the World Championships of like old riders that are the staples? But who are like some new riders coming up? Just even in the sport itself, like who are some new riders you're looking at?
We all know one. Good old Farmers, good old Hayden Pucker.
Yeah,
That dude has such a good VO2, such a good
farmland,
he's applying. It's a shame he missed it what it was, because he definitely could have been a cycler for the America's class, the America's Cup team. Like
totally.
I know that he's been talking to Ashton, I think, or somebody about applying for that. So I think he can definitely do it, and I think it suits him so well. Like he's just one of those, like, I'm gonna say he's like a Tadej Pogacar style. He's just like come out of nowhere, but got this massive engine that can just do huge power, and just it is so good, and he can recover, and he's got such a good VO2, and just
he's diamonds
but
in the rough.
there's many of the guys that are coming through, like, oh man, I just got that French guy that was in the elite series that was there in the front, and and then but also I think it's as well as like Thomas Perrin coming through it as well. Like it's a shame that he's had such a disrupted his work is he works. His work has been so disruptive that he's just not been able to put the training that he's needed to, but yet he's still able to perform.
Yeah.
You look at that, so, he's able to perform at such a high level, or like regardless. But I think it's just a testament to how deep he can push himself. So new riders, there's lots of them coming. There's lots of them bubbling there right at the surface, and I think again that's why I like this Swift Elite series, because it allows that people who aren't necessarily in a team or have a strong team to come through and race at the top level. But again, you always got your stables that are always there doing well, and it's always interesting to watch the older guys that do well fluctuating as well, that were doing so, like, and it's you look at your Toms and your Thralls and things. I think Tom is at the moment is on such good form. I just hope he can hold it until the World Finals. Like, he could do really well.
Fan of the show, Tom Thrall. We love Tom.
Do you have any like guys that made that final that you're personally excited for? Like, I'm rooting for you. I always root for Lionel because I was on the original Zwift All-Stars team with Lionel, so I got a chance to race on his team, and he's a super guy, right? And he absolutely could destroy me, and he would get on comms and be like, tell me what to do, the game, lead me, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, that's humbling, like, holy cow, because he can destroy me at any moment without even having any attempt at strategy. So I've always been a big Lionel fan. But do you have anybody like that made that final that's just like, this guy's a good guy to be here,
for the community? Because we all that's the argument is like, oh, these guys come in, like that. But if you have a community person wearing a jersey around with the verified, congratulations on your verified check.
Yeah.
Finally. It's a shame it's not a blue one, but it's just a standard one. But anyway,
lucky you. I only had mine for a week. But
I'm just to put it out there as well, that Team Fuego from the Singapore Olympics, we're the only team from that Olympic series the whole team is qualified. Just to put it like a really random nugget of information. How's that for a piece of nugget of information? Right?
That's a good one.
Zach is qualified from the other team.
Yeah.
Michael Kaminsky, Lionel from the other team, but none of the other full teams, including the women. So it's like
health issues or maybe something like that. But there's
shame. He's been really sick. Yeah. But I'll leave that nugget there that we might see Tepi arrive again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Bob Scout's on it. But that's it. So like I'm really looking forward to seeing the whole squad from Singapore. Lionel, Marlene, Lou, and all of them. We're all going there again, so it'll be great to again see those. And then again, I get to meet Tom Thrall for the first time from my team. I've been riding with him for who knows how long, and it's the first time I get to see Zach again. The first time I met him was in Singapore.
You've done these live events, right? So you've met these guys. I'm assuming it's the same way. I did it a couple times. Like, we all got there and it was a big party among the elite guys, right? Like we all fight online all the time, right? But when we all got together, like, we're going to dinner together, we're having a ball.
Yeah, we're all sitting together. We were in Singapore. We were all sitting together. We were all going out exploring Singapore together. We were all eating together. We were all talking. Lionel said to me when we were sitting having a beer at the airport waiting for our flight to go, because we were the last flights to leave, it's like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really angry at you, James, because you were the person online that you are in person. I was really I was hoping to find something that I could get angry at you about, but you are online who you are in person, and it's like, I was like, you are really just such a nice dude. And I was like, and it's just like those kind of interactions were just really cool. And I look forward to having that again, to meeting the guys in person and seeing those guys and seeing, as you said, seeing the online personalities versus the in-person personalities.
Yeah. But that's the stories. That's the stories of the sport. I mean, in life, on virtual, seeing this sort of thing kind of showcase this stuff is how this sport, that's why we love having you on the show and talking about being an athlete. So I have some
insider strategy on that. The guy that sits down with all the other racers and eats a burger the night before the weigh-in is the guy to look out for. When we were in LA, 8 guys are over there eating salads and sipping their water. And I'm sitting down and I'm like, yeah, give me a beer, give me a burger. We're good, right? I'm ready. I don't care if I'm 3 pounds heavier tomorrow. Let's do this.
Yeah. But also,
Speaking
I
of
learned a hell of a lot from that week in Singapore as well, just talking to the guys about things. And like, yeah, it's amazing to see how a guy like Ben Hill is so driven. He is an energizer buddy. He was training in the mornings with like the Zwift Try guys. He was doing the pull sessions with them. He was saunering. He was running. He was literally, if he was never sitting still. It's just amazing. But such a, like, again, another really guy who's just genuine, nice guy, has a ton of information and knowledge and is happy to share it and talk to you about it.
All right, I'm going to ask for some knowledge.
Uh-oh.
What is it, as an athlete, what would you want from all the platforms? Like, what's like the one thing that you want from all the platforms? Is that frustration or stump? Did I stump you?
Oh,
Do
stumped.
we have
with it.
another
It's like-
hour?
Stumped you on the
Yeah, do you have
spot.
another
Huh?
hour?
Too good of a question? All right, I'll go to a softball.
Yeah, it's too good of a question because each
All right.
platform you want different things from it. But like, you know, I'm gonna kind of half throw it out there, is that like the pack dynamic of either you need to be arcadey and be a casual arcade game, or you need to be realistic. You know, like so Zwift has kind of got that sweet spot where it's a bit arcadey, but it's realistic so that the way that things move, but we still remember we're in a game with power-ups and stuff. Whereas you've got other platforms that are being super realistic, but their dynamics and their feels and stuff are just way out. And they go, but then they talk as if they're realistic and thing, but you're like, no, this doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's this, you know, this.
So you
Yeah,
want?
things that we
So let me.
spoke about.
Okay. Let me
Like-
fine tune the question here. As not from all the platforms, as you as an athlete, what do you like seeing going into a platform? Like for me, I'll give you an example. I like simulation. I'd rather have simulation.
Yeah.
If it looks like a cartoon, great. But if the physics feel like a simulate, like I'm riding outside, that's what I kind of want.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much like that sort of thing. It's like, but then also I wanted to be able to have a community, like have a where people are riding, that people can interact. People are like,
Well, that's
interacting.
that can't really come from the developer.
I know that can't come from the platform, but it's also the way that the platform like harbors that community, and like the way that the platform interacts with that community too, like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I
I understand you want that, but it's like you're like, hey, I want a town. Like you build a town, and then like we just have to have people here. It's like people just kind of have to show up to the town and create their own community.
Yeah, you can't just get people just to come and just.
Yeah,
you have to make an environment where you want people to come and people to be there and people to grow the community, and you have to be, yeah, like. I think Zwift have done great. Zwift have done, you know, if you look at it again, people go, oh, but Zwift needs this and this and this. But again, you remember Zwift was one of the very first to do. They built the unique engine. Yes, it was a mistake. But then you look at all the other platforms that came afterwards that were able to build it on Unreal 3 or whatever it is. You know, but then those engines were available to them when those platforms came online. None of those engines thing. And then but then that's a lot of things which people forget. You know, there's a lot of tech debt within Zwift that makes it really hard for them to change things. But then, you know, again, there's things that we're all crying for, like the source and thing, which exposes it. And there's issues within that as well, but then, you know, which we all want within Zwift, but then expose, you know, it's just other rabbit holes that we could spend hours discussing.
Yes, and we won't. We're gonna because we're almost 2 hours in. I have one final question. And then maybe we can take some comments and stuff from unless nobody's watching this show. I don't know who watches this show. Everyone thinks I watch chat. I don't. I tune you guys out. I let the other people on the show watch chat. But my final question, and if anybody has any other final questions, get them in here. Mine is, where do you see this sport in 10 years? Or 5 years or in the future?
Yeah, I think one of the platforms I've had discussions with some of the platforms and in the background, and I'm looking forward to some of the discussions as well that are supposedly going to happen as well in Abu Dhabi. I think it's going to we're going to see things, hopefully, like now we're seeing it like with Cannondale coming on board with Next, which is great. We're seeing the bigger companies coming and realizing the exposure that they can get for the sports, and they're like, oh, like we can expose our brands to a wider audience and get people and get this, and I just hope that kind of growth continues. So we're going to start seeing more series. We're going to start seeing more people being
across
able to
the board.
do
athlete development, equipment.
Yep.
everything. You think this sport is going to thrive in 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Even more so. And it's going to get better.
Yeah, even more so. Yeah, and I think you're going to see more teams. You're going to see more not more platforms, but you're going to see more series. You're going to see more things like like the Echelon Race series and stuff. You're going to see more of that coming and hopefully bringing in more money towards the sport and being able to offer more things to athletes and to riders and to teams. Not necessarily just on a social level, but on that elite level as well, so that people are then wanting to push the boundaries and push themselves further. And then we'll then hopefully see more innovation. I think we'll see more innovation, small innovations within trainers, but I think we're seeing, trainers at the moment where they are, yes, they're really good, some of them, but there's always room for improvement in small areas. You look at the 1%, and there's always 1%, but I think if we then get that standardized, that UCI standardization of the reading going out, I think we'll see then more improvement to like around the data and stuff, the accuracy and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's that whole pivotal point where I think people are starting to realize the value of e-cycling. Again, Olympics, we completely, now that 2025 Olympics, esports is now an actual thing that's going to happen. So that's going to be very interesting to see and very exciting to see.
All right. Thank you, James Barnes.
Is
that it? Anybody else got anything else?
Come on, somebody must have something else.
I just had
I've got
a question.
I got a comment. Okay. About me or James?
No. I was just curious with you've done a few events now that you have to travel for. I mean, only one. The very nature of indoor riding is that it's in your house.
Yep.
Do you take traveling, does that throw you off? Like if you're at an event, like when you were in Singapore, did that take you out of your comfort zone, or was it good to be out of your comfort zone, for traveling? Like, you talked about how you jumped off your race for semifinals and then you're moving. Does being away from home help or hinder?
Yeah, of course. Obviously there's parts, because everybody's in the same boat if you're traveling. Some people are coming from much further time zones than others, and some people are traveling much longer to get to, where I am, miles from everything in the world, and trying to get, it's going to be a 20-hour flight to Abu Dhabi for me, via somewhere with an 8-hour layover. It's huge.
Wow.
But then you look at it Singapore, I was really struggling with sleep. But I think for me, the live in-person events are much more than about the performance. It's about what you talked earlier, Brian. It's about the in-person experience and seeing the people, and actually interact with the people that you've raced with online. For me, that's what I'm more excited about, and I know a lot of the other athletes are more excited about that than the actual in-person final. I think the in-person final is awesome. It's going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be awesome to see 20 people shoulder to shoulder racing, pushing. I hope everybody's on direct connect, and we don't have signal interference issues, and there's none of that problems like we had in Singapore. But I think it's going to be in-person final, and live events are something that should definitely be something that has to be done regularly, because it also, think of it this way, you now then can get people interacting and coming to those live events that's never seen the sport and sing and get to learn about it too. So you're actually exposing and growing the community and exposing it to a wider audience, rather than it just being purely online. Because if it's purely online, you either have to stumble upon it, know about it that's going on, or just know, so.
That's very true. Actually, I never really looked at it that way, where you're getting spectators to go, hey, what's this?
Yeah, there's a live
this looks
aspect.
Cool.
And then there's a broadcast. It's like even the old, if you go back and look at the old Casey races, that were in a velodrome, in LA. Didn't you did LA and Vegas or something like that? You did a couple of
I did LA twice and Roanoke, Virginia. I did 3 events. Yeah.
Those are you're right on the camera people can get right on the face and see that sort of thing. And that's also a benefit for it. Plus also the bike manufacturers, the trainer manufacturers, the developers, all those people. It's like a little convention. And those are starting to be more from other video games, or even the retro video games, but Comic-Cons. You have these little conventions, and it's just people network, and that's a big thing that happens. And usually that kicks off other things. And so maybe innovation, but also, hey, partnerships, and hey, let's do this thing, or I have this thing, which is very cool.
And I'm sure Casey, sorry, Casey, I just want to just quickly slide in here quickly. And I'm sure, Casey, that you'll put on the events that you've done for Zwift and racing, and and I know Richie will talk to this and say that the one thing that he'll take out that it was the best thing out of all of it was those in-person live events. Like,
oh yeah,
he loved them. He was like, that one he did for Worlds, that was just, he felt like an absolute rock star. Like, he had people and all kind, like, afterwards, and like Chris Hoy is there, and he was like, Chris Hoy was coming up to Richie and talking to him, and like Richie was like, you're Chris Hoy, like Sir Chris Hoy, like I should be the one, like, and he was like, and Kurt was asking him questions. Just like, it was just like, he felt like he was a rock star. He was like, he really enjoyed it because of that whole, like, it leveled everybody out, and it was that whole interaction with the community, with the people, and just like, it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter Allen friended me on Facebook, right? Like I'm friends with Hunter Allen. He knows me as a person because I met him. Those relationships we had. There's two parts to the live events, though. It's that for me, it was the legitimacy, right? You know, you talk about some of the question marks that come up when you get into that level of racing. When one event, two events, if you start getting into those live event venues, no matter who questions my, authenticity, right? I could go back and be like, okay, I did this on these stages on equipment that I had no control over, somebody else provided, like all of those things. It takes all of that out of it. I think I'm glad we're getting back to some of it, because I think like my whoosh, for example, in our experience, with my experience, it was Zwift. I think it helps them get some direct connection with the athletes too, to listen to them. And I assume, and you probably similar, James, I've probably met in person through those three events 50 to 60 people in the community that I've seen face to face. A few of them multiple times, that were at different events, and some of them are Zwift directly, and other ones are just big community members, or just peers in racing, that still now I may not talk to him all the time. I was just messaging Kim Little yesterday on Facebook, right? We hadn't talked in a year. He's asking about the kids, and I'm asking about his daughter and what we're doing for vacations, right? Like, I mean, you build those relationships. That's what builds our community.
Yeah, exactly. And that's as well, like, we've definitely made friends from that Singapore event that are lifelong friends. Martins and I are great friends from it.
Say rituals and superstitions. Do you have anything on big race days?
Oh, that's a good one.
Are you one of those guys where you're like, it's race day, I'm just going to jump on my bike and race? Or are you one of those guys where it's like, I need to do this, then this, then this, then this?
No, there's no real like rituals or like superstitions. Like, I'll try not, I'll slightly reduce my salt intake, so I'm not holding as much water, for the few days before, and I'll try eat like, reduce the amount of chocolate I'm having in the evening, rather than having 3 lines of chocolate. In the evening I'll have 1 or 2 maybe, or like, and just it's that sort of thing. That's what I do. I don't have a rituals. I don't really have I'm not really a superstitious type. I'm not really a ritual. Like, no. I
You always
kind of
put the
just
same
wake
shoe
up.
on first.
Jesus.
I do. I
That's
put
a big
my
question.
left
I don't
sock
think
on
so.
first.
Left shoe always on.
I did it since
Yeah,
lacrosse. That's a lacrosse thing. I always put my left
I'm
stuff in
left-footed,
first.
so yeah, I
Weirdos.
put my left foot in first.
I'm right-footed and I put my left, whatever. But yeah, no, very cool. Anything else, Brian? I know he's watching the Steelers game, so he hasn't been really. He's been on the
Actually,
beach
it's been
all
a
day.
weather delay, so it just kicked off.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we had some torrential downpours, so I was actually expecting to lose internet while we were doing this, like it was severe. But
Okay.
no, I think for everything it's been pretty much covered. I know the couple of questions I had or topics he touched on through the way. So
Okay. Is that it? James, you can hang
I
out
just
with us
wanted to
more
go
if you
back to
want.
my comment.
Yeah, anytime.
All right.
Just thank you, Barney. Yeah, call him Barney, right? We all his stream name,
James
right?
Barnes, everyone.
For bringing us into your pain cave at the elite level. You're offering a perspective to the entire community that we don't get, and your perspective of it as it's serious, but it's fun, right? Don't take it too seriously. Don't let it get into your headspace too much, right? Live life outside of it. Like, I just appreciate what you're opening your world to, because very few elites are doing that. So I hope more get into it. I hope more see this, and you're setting a great example for people wanting to get into it.
but I think quickly as well is like is that whole thing. As soon as you start losing the fun and the reason as to why, like, you know, cycling for me is a passion for it. As soon as you start losing that, then you need to maybe take a step back, take some time off, and have a think of as to what is it, like, what is it, and why is it that you're doing it. You know, it's that same thing you do, like, yeah. Then you maybe need to just take some time off, and there's nothing wrong with taking some time off to just do something else, or just ride along noodling, or just go sit with Coco and just ride along with Coco. You don't have to be racing all the time. You don't have to be doing intervals all the time. As long as you're you're enjoying it for what you're doing it for, and what, you know, you're getting out of it. What you know, I do it. I was lucky enough that I'd started Zwift and stuff because I was doing it for fitness purely. Then I realized I was really good at it. So then I was like, well, then I'll just keep doing it. And just because, and then I found like I had fun with it. Then I realized there's racing on it. So I was like, cool, this feeds my competitiveness, my gamingness, and my fitness, and a passion of cycling. Cool, this is great. I am super lucky that I've had this point. Sorry, Brian, you can.
No, we think. I was shaking my head on the which Brian. Which Brian?
Brian White wants to go.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something.
You said
Boo.
something that I go through on and off. Like there's times to where I'm full focused on training, and then I go through periods to where, like, I don't want to do an interval. I just want to ride my bike, do a race with Casey, Kellison, whoever, whatever it is. So how do you manage that? Because it seems like almost every time we see you, you're doing a workout. Is that
said he
just
likes
because you know
workouts,
your
though.
ultimate goal? You know, your ultimate goal is to be where you are, or is it that's just what you do? That's what you like.
Do you noodle?
Luckily, it's like I noodle. I love it. Like, I go riding with my wife on the weekends, and we just literally, in my training, it is noodles with Monique. In my training peak.
Oh yeah.
2.5 hours, 3 hours, noodles with Monique.
There you go.
Yeah. I go around
That's
just
great.
And that's the thing. And that's I think also something two things people always forget about. Shit happens. Life happens. Like, if it gets in the way of your cycling and you have to take a week off, like, that happens. Like, that's it. Cycling doesn't go away if you have to focus on something and think. Cycling is still there. You can still pick it up and do it. Like, so if you have to focus on something for a bit longer and you have to ride a bit less, well, that's it. But that, you know, and then that's the thing. I love riding slowly. I love riding to the coffee shop, getting a coffee, getting cake, and then I don't always have to be like. But then also on the flip side, I love slogging myself and absolutely like suffering and just literally leaving it all out there. So that, again, I'm happy doing, but like, it's a thing. But then people are like, oh, you know, like, oh, you're gonna hate riding with us because it's slow, and I'm like, sweet.
Oh yeah,
I'll
my brother.
sit and just talk shit,
I get
shit
that
with
too.
you and ride all the
get
time.
that too.
My brother, I got my brother on Zwift, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be too slow." I'm like, "Dude, I know how to go slow. You just need to learn how to go fast." That's the thing. I know how to go
Yeah.
slow.
But that's exactly it. Exactly that. Like, that's exactly that. Is that you will learn to go fast. You'll learn it.
I love
you'll
it.
learn as a first time rider. You'll learn the craft. You'll learn thing. Everybody started at that same point.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody started with zero Zwift. Everybody started with zero fitness. I was lucky enough that I've got talent and I've got a little bit of extra this that I can then ride at the top level. But then there's also nothing wrong with being a D grade rider. And if you are giving it your all and you're racing as hard as you can, that's it. That is awesome. Like, congrats to you. You don't have to be racing at the top level to be successful and enjoy your racing.
That's our co-host in
Like,
Canada.
you know, and squirms.
Lee is
the world
just
is
like
powered
that.
by squirms.
He loves being
And Bev,
whatever
too.
C, Aunt Bev. No, but
Hi.
Lee is the epitome of like fun cyclist.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
he is
true.
like,
I
he's
eat
like,
way
I
too
don't
much
want to go
food.
hard. I just want to do this, but he'll do workouts to do his stuff. I don't want to speak for him. He's right here.
I'll be
But
the
go ahead.
fastest fat guy.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm gonna sign. I don't care where my fitness is. I'm signing up for Canadian nationals because they exist.
oh yeah,
and I
'cause
want to
one
support.
day-
And I want to support the sport.
because you never know, someone could have an accident, and there
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
3 people and a podium.
Exactly.
Yeah, fifth
Yeah,
best.
but
fifth
that's
best.
exactly it. No, but that's exactly it. Is that
Yeah.
if there's, and then that whole thing. If you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. If you
Yeah,
don't
that's the
show up,
dream.
I didn't
you
think
never
I,
know.
I didn't think I
Why?
was gonna win the first. What was it? 2022. I didn't think I was gonna win. I thought I was gonna get beat by Brian Hodges. I thought he was gonna smoke me in the sprint, and I was just like, I gotta. And that was one of the biggest, because I had success on the outside. I had upgraded to 2 in the United States, from starting as a 5, 4, 3, 2, and then racing in 2s. But virtually, I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to do. And that's the thing is like, you can, if you try, you can come. And then I had success. And then I was like, oh, I got to do it again. I want to try to do it again. And that's the thing is like, I think all of us here, we love cycling, period. Mm-hmm. Everything else is a byproduct of that. Yeah. And and there's time, like you said, and James brought up a great point. If life and I always say this, life happens. This is what I tell our team and my club and everything is like, hey, I can't train. I don't know if you show up to a race here in Northern California. Say, hey, life happens. I get it. Show up, do what you can do. And that's it. And then enjoy it. That's the main thing is have fun. Have fun.
Yep. But again, it's like, look at the community and the stuff that are people that I've met like from it. It's like, I'll be forever grateful for it. Like, I'll be forever grateful for it.
Who of the other streamers do you dislike the most? No, I'm just joking. That's a joke.
Oh, there's this guy who does late nights in the U.S. that's always
San Francisco,
asking people to huddle up. And
loves this browser-based.
I've been disliked by somebody.
Huddle up. What? Oh, goodness. All right. Is that enough?
That's another rabbit hole.
I have tons of rabbit holes. I have tons of rabbit holes. All right. I want to thank our guest. Is that it? I think we're good. You're good. That's 2 hours. It's like 2 hours. James,
you've missed those things with Nathan and I also go down those rabbit holes when we were on those things. Jeepers crikey, we'd end up down some rabbit holes there.
Hopefully we opened some new rabbit holes for you.
Neverland where you ended up in.
Oh yeah, I have well, that's our Discord channel most of the time. So
reckless speculation.
Yeah. Any reckless speculation? Any comments from the audience? Anybody watching this show? I don't even know if anyone's tuned in.
Oh yeah, they're just sitting back taking it in.
All right, right on. No, but James, I'm a big fan personally. Like knowing you, we talk on the side, but as a viewer, watching you race is fun. There's times where I have multiple broadcasts on. And I'm like, you're saying you go back and watch like the national, the world feed, as we call it in the television land. The world feed is one perspective, but seeing your perspective and going, hey, what are you doing? Like, it's fun to see your full camera, your struggle, and your story. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad somebody enjoys it.
Yeah, well,
we all do.
Yeah,
we do.
You want to play the music, or do you want to just?
Isn't it like? Yeah, we can play the music.
No, you tell me, Lee. Any questions from the audience? I'm serious. Nobody has anything.
The chat was actually very quiet because
very well behaved.
Was listening intently to what James had to say.
James has ruined our show because we usually have most people chiming in with like 30 things that don't matter to anything and derailing the whole show. So on that note, let's say, hey, thanks again. We'll wrap it up here. I think we ended on a good note. Everyone's smiling. I still feel good about my life because I didn't, say something non-disclosure agreement or something like that. Like this. Hey, that's the last one. That the little small non-disclosure agreement on the Zwift thing, they need that bigger when they do their announcements.
Wait, is that?
Whatever. On the rules, whenever they send out their rules, like their non-disclosure thing, like, hey, this is like for the elite.
Brian's alluded.
Oh, really?
About the fact that
I think it needs to be smaller.
Oh, okay.
It's too small.
I like yours. I'll admit something. Yeah, I stole yours at the bottom. That like at the bottom of your Twitch stream.
Yeah.
There's your like, this is my personal things and things. I've ripped that. Thank you very much. Sorry, I have ripped that and put that on mine because
there you go. Hey, corporate training, baby. Corporate training. Okay.
Like I think that is something that. Then again, I think that's also my last point is that a lot of people forget that we're all doing this out of passion and love. We're not doing this for corporate. So yes, we have personal views and sometimes they don't align. And that's another problem is that people forget I'm allowed a different view and opinion to you. And if mine doesn't align with yours and you get upset with it, well, that's your problem, not mine. Don't have to like throw the kitchen sink out and get all offended with and then get people to bring high heaven and call the police because it differs. Nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah.
And Absolutely. I don't have to agree with you to like you, James.
Yeah,
right?
Well, that's always,
we always agree on everything. All right. Brian White has fallen asleep. Lee is about ready to lay down and go to sleep.
Oh wait, it's early here.
Oh, it's early.
I'm
on the
hungry.
West Coast,
I
man.
actually, I
Yeah,
have a lot
kid
of.
an
an
Please,
hour and a
I
half
need to go to
ride to
work.
start this thing.
I need to
All
go
right,
back
play
to
the
work.
music. Play the music. We'll just talk out because I got a ton of things that we can just talk offline about. But let's play
All
the
right.
music. Let's get out of
Thanks,
here.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Bye.
we'll see you guys.